Welcome to the Millionaires Mining Executive Drill Down. This is Leo Gantz, and today I'm speaking with a real-life mining legend, Jim Wolchok. His bio and credentials are longer and more impressive than most natural resources professionals I've ever met in my 18-year career. Jim is the CEO of Zinc One Resources, which is the single largest zinc position in my strategic minerals fund, co-owned with my three partners. We are aggressively building a dollar cost averaging position below 50 cents Canadian, as the current market cap is basically close to liquidation costs. It is extremely cheap. It's a 3-year outlook, as Zinc One aims to become the world's next zinc producer by 2020. Jim, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk about what are the main uses of this industrial metal around the globe.
It's mostly it's the cheapest way to galvanize steel. It's I would say about 87% of all of zinc is used for industrial minerals or industrial purposes, with most of them being for galvanizing steel. So making sure that your cars don't rust out and things like that. Some of it's used in pharmaceuticals, some of it's used in sunscreens and things like that as well. But those are more eclectic. But the primary use of zinc, and I think, will always be for industrial use. And right now, if you take a look at the booming economies that are happening basically in China and India in particular, and soon to be with the upsurge of increasing all the infrastructure in the United States, there's going to be a much more bigger demand for zinc, I believe anyways.
Jim, in the past 22 years, there have been no major discoveries. Literally, stockpiles are very low, meaning inventory is low. How critical is the situation for zinc globally on supply and demand?
Oh, right now it seems like the total world stockpile is down to about less than 7 days, and that's phenomenal because typically there's well over, it should be around 40 days, and I think that's what's sort of creating this a little bit of a panic. And you're absolutely correct. And not only have there not been any big discoveries of zinc mineralization throughout the world, but they've shut down 3 mines. I think there's the Century in Australia, the Brunswick in Canada, and the Lachine in Ireland. So exactly. It's going in a different direction than it should be right now.
We know that what brings speculative money back into junior resources, which is very important for these companies to move forward, is three things. One, traditional stocks need to be trading sideways or down, and that's clearly not happening. Index investing is very lucrative and profitable and easy for part-time investors right now. Secondly, large cap companies in the sector need to see some fat bottom line profits and increase their dividends. We're seeing Glencore out with news on potentially doubling their dividend. This will attract institutional money, which will actively pressure these companies into making acquisitions and replacing depleting mines. And this is the third thing, positioning with junior mining companies that are potential buyout targets as they ramp up their exploration budgets and their development process. And we're just seeing the beginning of this, but there's a long way to go. Will 2018 be one of the last and only periods during this cycle before it turns around and becomes very profitable again?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're spot on. I think your analysis is very accurate. I do. I think 2018 is going to be it's going to be a good year for Zinc One, I'll tell you, but it's going to be a very interesting year from a point of mergers and acquisitions as well.
Let's talk about Zinc One now, Jim. What's the flagship project and why is it special?
That's a great question. The flagship property is in Peru. It's called the Bongora, and we have the adjoining property called the Charlotte Bongora concessions as well, but that's more long term. The Bongora project right now is really special because of its very, very high-grade nature. It was a past producer, and it ended up having to close down because of the market crash back in 2008. And through subsequent events, we ended up acquiring it. And we have this project, but the beauty of this thing is it doesn't take a lot of tonnage to generate a lot of zinc metal. I mean, we've done sort of our own analysis from the database that we have here, and we looked at 1,138 different deposits around the world, all over 100,000 tons, say. And we are in the top 1% as far as grade goes. I mean, we have a historical resource that needs to be defined, and that's part of the excitement that's going to be coming up in 2018 for us. But it definitely is in the top 1% of all the known deposits as far as grade goes. You know, it's running over 20% zinc, and if you just do a quick analysis, you can actually see that's almost, and it's sitting on surface. That's the beauty of this thing, is that it's not only is it such high grade and you could easily afford to mine it from an underground point of view, but it's just sitting on surface, and it makes it incredibly attractive, and what we believe is going to be a very premier deposit and a really great mine in the future.
Jim, why are you the right person to advance the company? Tell us a little bit about your background.
A little bit of my history is I'm a mining engineer. I'm not a geologist, but I've done just about every engineering job that you can do inside the mining field, from rock mechanics through to projects, through to chief mining engineer, all those sorts of things. And then I moved over into the operational side, where I got to run the operations and work with the miners and make sure everything was safe and that way. And then I fell into a really good group of guys that were developing a project in Tanzania, and they asked me to come over there and do the feasibility study. So I'd never done that. So I came over there, and over 3 years we took it right through to feasibility, and we started constructing it. Then we got taken out by Barrick. So up to that point, I'd been strictly in operations. Now I'd been done.
And that's Barrick Gold, the world's largest gold company?
Correct. They asked me to stay on and assist them. I became the manager of mining for them. So I didn't have the metallurgical or the security or things like that, but I had all the mining, the shaft sinking contractors, the tunneling contractors. I had safety, and I had all the maintenance, and I had built up my own mining team. So I had about 700 or 800 people working for me by the time I had left. And we got to sink a shaft. We were doing a mile of development a month. We had, if you can imagine, something only 1.5 meters to 2 meters wide, producing 2,500 tons a day. That's kind of what we were at. It was a very complex mine. We had 110 different working places that had to be looked at every day, and we had to make sure that we developed 3 ramps and a mile of development a month, if you can imagine that. So it was a great experience. It truly was, and it was a great challenge, and I enjoyed it very much. But then I left it to go now join the junior mining sector here in Vancouver, and I enjoy that even more. So with my background, I can assess people, I can work with engineering firms, I can work with miners, I can work with contractors. And I was just looking for the right project at the right time in my career, and this one just is perfect for what I want. It's easy. But it'll generate a lot of money when we get it up and going. And we don't think it's going to take that much to actually, from a permitting point of view and from an engineering point of view, to get it to a point where we can actually get some shovels in the ground, get this thing built. 24 to 36 months is what we're targeting.
To my understanding, mining mogul Keith Neumeier is a large shareholder of the company, one of his only positions outside his own companies. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about his other positions, but I know he's a very big supportive shareholder of our company, and it's kind of great because Keith has built up such a great company in his own right basically by himself running it. So he's there to give guidance in some areas that maybe I haven't even seen before. So he's been incredibly supportive, and he's a wonderful asset that I can draw on when I get to a point where I need to get some other, like a sounding board per se. But Keith actually has done it and has been through it in so many different ways that he's a great sounding board and a great mentor.
You have big plans for Q1 and Q2 of 2018, so you're definitely not holding back right now. What's your debt and cash levels, and what are the milestones you're trying to hit in 2018?
We're good enough to get this program up and running, which will get some really good information into the market. So we Q1 and Q2 are basically going to be coming through with drill results, which we think are going to be, I think the market's going to like what they're going to see. And then we'll get that PEA done probably by the beginning of Q3. So we get a preliminary economic assessment based on the resource that we expect to have come out in Q2. So yeah, it's a very exciting time for us.
Jim, lastly, you had big news that came out just now. What's the update, and how significant is it?
It's massive. This is what we've been waiting for a long time. We got our permits to drill 124 holes, 124 permits for platforms. And what that means is that we can drill at least 3 holes per platform if we want. But it's what we've been waiting for. We can actually get on the property and start putting holes down there. We got the guys mobilized now to go build the camp. We expect drilling to start beginning of the year. It's going to be, this is the one that we've been waiting for a long time.
What's
and it was a
sky on this? So if this goes well, what are you expecting to strike down there?
Well, right now there's a historical resource of about 1.2 million. And all we really want to do is see if we can get it up to 1.8 to 2 million, which we don't think will be a problem based on all the information that we have. And after that, after we get that, because that'll give us a mine life of about 10 years. And that's what we're after right now, is to establish a good resource that we can develop a mine around. And in years 2 and 3 and 4, after we get it up and running, then we can go exploring, and there's so much blue sky potential on both of these properties. It's just incredible. So we expect to be there for quite a long time.
Jim Walczyk, always a pleasure. See you on the mine tour. And if you want all the details about Zinc One Resources and everything that's going on, go to wealthresearchgroup.com/Zinc Riches. Thanks for joining us.